What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi with a brand new deck profile video. This time I'll be showing you the changes and updates to my Penguin deck, which is essentially just a glorified Aqua type deck, but I really enjoy the way that Penguins try to operate and work. It makes it really easy to do spamming maneuvers, even though realistically it wants to play defensively more so than offensively. But I think by using the right number of extra deck monsters of specific varieties, I've created a system that allows it to operate in a way that moves both offense into defense and then vice versa. Let me show you what I got. Starting off with the monster lineup, I have a playset of Penguin Soldier, and yes, I am still using that Orca. When Penguin Soldier is flipped face up, I can return up to 2 monsters from the field to the owner's hands, which means I can target my own as well as my opponent's. No Penguin, however, makes it more valid for me to target opponent's cards than my own, because if a card would be returned from the field to the hand by the effect of a Penguin card, it gets banished instead. During either player's turn, when the effect of a Penguin monster is activated, you special summon him specifically from the graveyard, and I can only use this effect once per turn, of course, so obviously you want this card in the graveyard as quickly as possible. Now for the non-Penguin style cards, I do run a couple of techie Aquas. Specifically a pair of Aqua Spirit, who can special summon itself from your hand by banishing a water monster out of your graveyard, and as long as it remains face up on the field during each of my opponent's standby phases, I can change the battle position of an opponent's face up monster, and it cannot change its battle position for the rest of the turn. Though to be honest, the main reason I run it is because it's a Water Aqua 4-star, and you'll see why that matters in a bit. It's also the same reason I run Escher the Frost Vassal, but I also run it because it can special summon itself from my hand if my opponent controls 2 or more cards in their spell and trap zones. Now going back into the Penguin monsters, we also have a playset of Flying Penguin. I've never really been confident in running this card at 3, but due to some small changes I made to my extra deck, it is able to be played a little bit more fluidly, no pun intended. Nightmare Penguin is always going to be a 3 of because when flipped face up, it returns a card on the opponent's side of the field to the owner's hand, which does include a spell trap. And while it's face up, it increases the attack of all water monsters on my side of the field by 200. But the playmaker and the star of the deck is Great Emperor Penguin. By tributing him, I can special summon up to 2 Penguin monsters from my deck, except for copies of itself. Moving into the spell cards, we have a single copy of Dark Hole, again because I can't really afford Raigekis, a playset of Instant Fusion, which special summons any 5-star or lower fusion monster from my extra deck, and that's actually helpful in terms of the rank 4 plays more than anything, though I did find a new target to use for it. 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Rank Up Magic the 7th one, which I am maining in this deck because the extra deck monster it pulls is relevant to how this deck plays. If I draw it during my normal draw phase, I can reveal it, keep it revealed until main phase 1, and then actually activate it, which special summons a number monster with a number between 101 and 107 from the graveyard or extra deck, and then I can immediately Xyz summon on top of it its Chaos form, the number C version. 3 Salvage, and as you can see there's plenty of 1500 or less attack water monsters in the graveyard that I can add back to my hand with it. 2 Scapegoat, which I'm sure is probably going to confuse a lot of people, but I do run some more generic-ish Link monsters in the extra deck that this card can benefit from. Now the playset of Transmodify is the most relevant spell in the deck and is the reason I run so many level 4 water attribute Aqua monsters, because it lets me tribute one of them off to special summon a monster with the same type and attribute but 1 level higher, which of course is going to be the Great Emperor Penguin. Twin Twisters, blowing up 2 spell traps my opponent controls after I've summoned my Escher, hopefully, and it also helps get the No Penguin out of my hand. And a playset of Unexpected Die, which is exclusively used to pull the copies of Flying Penguin out of my deck. For the trap cards, I'm keeping it incredibly simple and sticking to only a pair of Bottomless Trap Hole and a single Solemn Warning. Moving on. Next we move into the side deck. We have a spare copy of Aqua Spirit, and a playset of Guard Penguin, which unfortunately because it's a winged beast and not an Aqua, is significantly harder on the deck to use in the main. But it does help me get into one specific extra deck monster that I've also put in the side, and you'll see it in a moment. If I take damage from a card effect except during the damage step, I can special summon this card from my hand, and if I do, gain life points equal to the damage I took. Super Quantal Mech Beast Grand Pulse. I used to run this in the extra deck itself, but because I didn't get enough level 3 monsters on the field often enough, I felt like it really wasn't relevant anymore. The main reason I used it is because it can detach a material to destroy a spell trap on the field. Now, Ice Beast Zero Fine is the side card that goes with the guard penguins, requiring 2 level 4 Winged Beast type monsters. Once per turn, I can detach a material from her, negating the effects of all face-up cards my opponent currently controls, and if I do, it gains 300 attack for each face-up card currently on the field except itself. Unfortunately, I also had to put Full Armor Crystal Zero Lancer into the side deck for the moment. It stacks itself on top of any rank 5 water monster that I control. It gains 500 attack for each material attached to it, and if it would be destroyed, I can detach a material from it instead. But its most important effect is that by detaching a material from it, all face-up monsters my opponent currently controls have their effects negated until the end of the turn. 1 Compulsory, Double Fiendish Chain, Triple Rivalry of Warlords, which locks both players into controlling only one type of monster, and since the main deck is entirely Aqua and I have Aqua type monsters in my extra deck, it doesn't hurt me as badly as most people would expect it to. And a pair of Torrential Tribute. And finally, we finish up with the extra deck. First off, instead of running Rare Fish, I'm now running a pair of Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Not only is it a little bit stronger in terms of attack points, but it has something of a protection effect that I do like for this deck. While it's face up, monsters on the field with the same attribute as it cannot be targeted by opponents' card effects. Once returned during either player's turn, I can declare an attribute and change its attribute until the end of the turn. 1 copy of Totally Awesome, which can be summoned naturally in this deck, and that's the main way I prefer to play it if I can. Once per turn during the standby phase, I can detach a material and special summon a frog from my deck, but I don't run any, so that's not really relevant. Once returned during either player's turn, when my opponent activates a spell or trap card or a monster effect, I can send an Aqua-type monster from my hand or face-up from my field to the graveyard, including itself, negate the activation, and if I do, destroy it. Then I can set that card to my field if I have the ability to. If it's sent to the graveyard, I can target a water monster in my grave and add it back to my hand. I also run a copy of Rebellion Shark in this deck, which, once per turn, can target a number monster in my graveyard except a copy of itself, special summon it, and if I do, I attach 1 material from it to that monster I just resummoned. Also, if it happens to go to the graveyard from anywhere, I can target a rank-up magic spell in my deck and stack it on top. Bahamut Shark, which is the primary way I summon Rebellion Shark from my extra deck, can attach a material and special summon a rank 3 or lower water Xyz from my extra deck, but he cannot attack during the rest of the turn I do this. And I usually use it as an Xyz material to special summon Full Armored Black Ray Lancer, whom can stack itself on top of a rank 3 water Xyz monster I control that has no materials. He gains 200 attack for each Xyz material attached to it because it can be summoned with 3 level 4 waters if I felt the need. If he would be destroyed, I can attach all of its Xyz materials instead, which sets off Rebellion Shark's effect. And if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, I can target a spell trap my opponent controls and destroy it. I also have Hope Woven Dragon Spider Shark. When any player's monster declares an attack, I can attach a material from it, and all monsters my opponent controls lose 1,000 attack until the end of this turn. But if he's destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, I can target 1 other monster in my graveyard and special summon it. Number 101 Silent Honor Arc. You can attach 2 materials from it, and target a special summon monster my opponent controls in attack mode, and attach it to this card as a material. But if this card would be destroyed, I can attach a material from it instead. Number 103 Ragna Zero. Once per turn, during either turn, I can detach a material and target a face-up attack position monster my opponent controls whose current attack is different from its original attack, destroy it, and if I do, I draw a card. C101 Silent Honor Dark. I have stopped running Ragnafinity at the moment because this card is slightly more relevant being an Aqua type. Once per turn, I can target a special summon monster my opponent controls and attach it to this card as a face-up Xyz material. And if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard while it has material, I can special summon it back from the graveyard, then gain life points equal to its original attack. However, I do have to have 101 in the graveyard to activate and resolve this effect. And if it is special summoned this way, it cannot attack for the rest of this turn. Now for the Link monsters, I have made the deck slightly more generic. I now run 2 Link Spiders, which is a good tandem card for the Scapegoat, and also for the Flying Penguins to get them out of my hand faster, where I can special summon a level 4 lower normal monster from my hand to the zone that it points to once per turn. I am also waiting for my copy of Land Forensis to show up in the mail. It's basically just a generic Link 2 monster, and it's the easiest way that I can clear the Link Spider out of my extra deck monster zone, though I am waiting for a better Link monster to come around. And I also am still running 2 Miss Starboy. All water monsters on the field gain 500 attack and defense, all fire monsters on the field lose 400 attack and defense, and if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, I can target a water monster in my grave and add it to the hand. And that is the deck. The only reason I did the deck in this way is because of the fact that we unfortunately did not get the new Mermail Abyss Alacia card I was waiting for, so I kinda had to innovate it. But I like to think that the changes that I made aren't completely terrible, and do in fact accelerate the plays slightly more. Though to be honest, we are supposed to be getting some really interesting new support in the near future. There's a new card in the Subterra archetype that was confirmed that is generic support for flip decks. We just got confirmed the first Charmer Link monster, unfortunately being Fire attribute, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're not getting a Water one, it might just take a little bit. And when we eventually get the new White Aura and the new Mermail Abyss Alacia, I'll be able to update this deck once again, so I'm expecting to make another update to this deck in the near future, depending on what we get in upcoming sets. I hope you guys like the deck profile, and if you can think of any way that I can improve this Aqua Penguin deck, feel free to let me know. In the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.